I am disgusted at the seat warmers in this chamber who tell me privately they agree with these initiatives and policies but refuse to support them in public. Lastly, this Prime Minister should, but will most definitely not, fall on his sword for imposing a racially divisive referendum on the Australian people and blowing more than $400 million on a lost cause. The PM can hold a robo-debt Royal Commission, but no Royal Commission into sexual abuse of children. Australians are not fools, and that was evident last weekend, and they are fed up with the politics, false promises and the blatant deceit this government shows towards them. So Australians will have that say at the next election, and hopefully this government will be gone, thrown out on its ear.
It always starts the same way in Australia. You wake up, make yourself a nice cuppa, open the news, and before you even get the chance to dunk a bicky, someone in Canberra has said something that makes you choke on your morning biscuit like a startled kookaburra. And today, mates, the political chaos hit the fan so hard it practically did a lap of the outback. Because while most of us were out there minding our own business, Senator Pauline Hanson walked into the Senate looking like she had a list of grievances longer than the Great Ocean Road and ready to deliver them with enough spice to season every sausage at Bunnings. And sitting across from her was Senator Penny Wong, calm, polished, collected, wearing that expression she gets when she knows she's about to be blamed for everything from electricity bills to the weather. Meanwhile, Anthony Albanese wasn't even in the room, not because he was hiding. No, he was down in the lower house where prime ministers actually sit. But you'd think from the level of dramatic energy building in the chamber that he'd slipped out the back door with a snorkel on, paddling toward New Zealand for a quick escape. And as soon as Pauline stood up, the atmosphere changed. You could practically see the senators sitting up straighter, tightening their ties and checking their heart rate on invisible Fitbits. Pauline had that tone that says, "All right, everyone, buckle up, we're going on a ride." And oh, what a ride it was. Real quick, before we roll the footage, if you're enjoying this content, do me a huge favour, hit that like button and smash subscribe. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing. Toby, don't be one of them. It's free for you and it helps us out more than you know. Already clicked? You're awesome. Let's get into the video.
Well, I've served in this parliament over the terms of 4 Prime Ministers. Prime Minister Albanese has easily been the worst of them. He promised he would lead a more accountable government in the wake of Scott Morrison's secret ministries. The Labor government's conduct in Parliament has been exactly the opposite of this principle. They have shut down debate on critical legislation, ramming through disastrous bills with the enthusiastic support of the Greens and Senator Pocock. Yesterday they refused to support Senator Price's motion supporting Royal Commission in child sexual abuse in Indigenous communities, making the disgusting claim it was playing politics. The hypocrisy and callousness of the statement is breathtaking. The motion wasn't playing politics, but voting it down was. This is the Prime Minister who promised a $270 reduction in electricity bills, but they've gone up almost 50% under his government. Despite strong public support for my measures, Labor has refused to look into the Aboriginal industry corruption, children being treated for gender dysphoria and Indigenous identity fraud. My approach to these issues has always been in the interest of the Australian people. I am disgusted at the seat warmers in this chamber who tell me privately they agree with these initiatives and policies but refuse to support them in public. Lastly, this Prime Minister should, but will most definitely not, fall on his sword for imposing a racially divisive referendum on the Australian people and blowing more than $400 million on a lost cause. The PM can hold a robo-debt Royal Commission, but no Royal Commission into sexual abuse of children. Australians are not fools, and that was evident last weekend, and they are fed up with the politics, false promises and the blatant deceit this government shows towards them. So Australians will have that say at the next election, and hopefully this government will be gone, thrown out on its ear.
She started with a line that could have cracked the marble pillars in the building. She'd served under 4 prime ministers. 4. And according to her, Prime Minister Albanese has been, and I quote in the spirit of parody, easily the worst of them. Not slightly disappointing, not could have done better, but the worst. There was a moment there where even the microphones seemed to pause, like they needed to brace themselves. Penny Wong blinked exactly twice in rapid succession, the universal political sign for here we go again. And the chamber suddenly felt like a barbecue where someone had just insulted the host's potato salad. But Pauline wasn't done. Oh no, she reminded everyone that Albanese had promised a more accountable government after the whole secret ministries drama from the previous administration. And according to her, what we got instead was the political equivalent of telling your mum you cleaned your room when really you just shoved everything under the bed and hoped she wouldn't look. She accused the government of shutting down debates faster than a parent shutting down a kid's request for a pet crocodile. Critical bills, she said, were being rammed through Parliament like some kind of legislative speed dating event, with the Greens and Senator Pocock cheering them on like they were at a footy match. And then we got to the part where she brought up Senator Price's motion. She said Labour refused to support a royal commission into child sexual abuse in Indigenous communities. And she described their explanation as plain politics. Pauline didn't just disapprove. She launched into a full performance. If her eyebrows had gone any higher, they would have needed aviation clearance. She called the statement breathtaking, called the refusal callous, said the hypocrisy was so strong it could probably power a small town. Penny Wong sat there like a Zen monk in a wind tunnel, staying calm while getting rhetorically buffeted from every direction. Then came the electricity bills. Pauline said Albanese promised Australians a $270 reduction, but instead, according to her, they've gone up almost 50%. And she didn't deliver it calmly. No, she said it with the energy of someone who just opened an electricity bill and shouted loud enough for the whole suburb to hear. It was pure parody gold, delivered with the pacing of someone who has been saving this frustration since the last financial year. You could almost hear imaginary violins playing in the background while she listed it. She then pivoted, with no warning whatsoever, into talking about measures she said Labour refused to look into. What she described as corruption in the Aboriginal industry, issues around gender dysphoria, and concerns about Indigenous identity fraud. But she presented them with this dramatic flourish as though she was revealing the final plot twist of a long-running soap opera. Her voice tightened, her tone sharpened, and she delivered the line that always makes Australian politics feel like a live-action reality show. She said she was disgusted that some senators privately agreed with her initiatives but wouldn't support them publicly. And she didn't say disgusted in a calm way. No, she said it like a mum who just found out someone used her good scissors to cut cardboard. Then came the big crescendo. Pauline said the Prime Minister should fall on his sword, though she added he definitely wouldn't, for imposing what she described as a racially divisive referendum costing over $400 million. She said Australia had already spoken, already rejected it, and that the money was blown on a lost cause. This was delivered with such theatrical weight that you could practically imagine a lighting crew lowering spotlights during her speech. Penny Wong, for her part, had the serene expression of someone who mentally left her body and is now hovering above Parliament, reviewing her life choices. Pauline compared Albanese's willingness to hold a royal commission into Robodebt with his unwillingness, in her view, to hold one into child sexual abuse. And then she delivered the line that sent a ripple through the whole chamber. Australians are not fools, which fair enough, we're definitely not. But she said it with such passionate force that it sounded like she was making sure the microphones wrote it down word for word. And as she wrapped up, she went full dramatic climax, saying the public was fed up with politics, fed up with false promises, fed up with deceit. She said Australians had spoken over the weekend, spoken loudly, apparently, and that the government would be gone at the next election. And she delivered it the way someone delivers a prophecy in a fantasy movie. If she'd raised a staff in the air and summoned lightning, honestly, no one would have been surprised. Now, throughout this entire performance, Penny Wong gave this kind of elegant, almost rehearsed non-reaction. The kind that says, I'm not rising to it. Nope, not today, not on camera. If politics were an Olympic sport, Penny would win gold in non-flinching under pressure. Albanese, of course, wasn't there, but the way Pauline spoke, you would have thought he was hiding behind the curtains like a school kid, avoiding roll call. The parody energy was on full display. It was big, it was dramatic, it was over the top. Exactly the kind of thing Parliament Question Time is known for, but with a little extra paprika. The chamber was quiet for a moment afterward. You know that quiet, the kind you get after a kookaburra laugh echoing across a valley? Everyone waited to see what would happen next. Would Penny clap back? Would someone stand up and deliver an even bigger monologue? Would Albanese suddenly appear through a trapdoor like a magician? But no. The room settled, the echo faded, the speech hung in the air like the lingering smell of burnt toast. This, my friends, is why political parody practically writes itself in Australia, because no matter where you stand, no matter who you vote for, you can't deny that our parliament has more plot twists, dramatic speeches and unexpected outbursts than a primetime soap opera. And as long as we've got fiery senators, unflappable ministers, and a Prime Minister who occasionally becomes the star of the show, even when he's not physically in the room, we'll have plenty to laugh at, plenty to talk about, and plenty to turn into harmless political satire. And that's the beauty of it. We joke, we parody, we poke fun, never to spread hate, never to mislead, but simply to shine a comedic light on the wild theatre that is Australian politics. Because sometimes the only way to survive Canberra is to look at the chaos, laugh and say, fair dinkum only in Australia.